Hi everyone, it's Natalie here from Sanskrit Blue. Welcome if you're new, and to those who are well familiar with the readings, welcome back. So this week I am going to do our reading with the New Earth Tarot, second edition by Katie Silver, and or by Kate Silver, I think she goes by. And I'm going to be using the Empathic Oracle by Michelle Motuzas and Steve Wilson. So, we've already drawn the Amenti card for the week, the Amenti Oracle card. And its meaning is I am peaceful. And when we look at what that means for us in the coming week, a large part of that is going to be about intention, and holding an intention for peace, and in holding an intention for finding peace within ourselves and creating peace within ourselves, taking responsibility for the creation of peace within ourselves as we go through the week coming. So it's more an intention to find and create peace for ourselves as an active doing, right? So not waiting for someone to tell us to go find peace or be at ease, but finding, how can I find a way to integrate this into my day-to-day life, right? So I am peaceful. And let's go ahead and shuffle the New Earth Tarot. One of my favorite, all-time favorite decks. Haven't used it in a while. So it felt like the right moment to bring it back out. And I am riffle shuffling it because it will riffle shuffle. Okay, so 3 cards for the week, please, deck. Oh, wow, chatting already. Okay, so 2 fell out. So we have 8, which is justice, and we have the 2 of swords. I'm going to count those, I think, as 1 instead of as 2 separate cards. 2 separate cards. Wow. So Mercury was stationed direct yesterday. And by the way, this is a reading for the week starting Sunday, the 3rd of November through Saturday, the 9th of November. Okay, so I've managed to pull all of our cards for the week this week. The first 2 to jump out, interestingly, were Justice, which is 8, and the 2 of Swords. And there's often some definite resonance between these 2 cards with one another anyway. So that is a very interesting development. The second one we have is the 6 of Swords. And then, of course, the third we have the 10 of Swords. So there are some of the meanings in this particular deck that overlap really beautifully with Rider-Waite-Smith and others that have nothing to do with it at all whatsoever. So when we get to the 6 and the 10, I thought perhaps I might pull out from this gorgeous chunky handbook that Kate Silver wrote to accompany the cards, because the meanings are really stunning. So first, going into the beginning of the week, it looks like finding and holding a sense of balance is really, really important to us. Where can we find the balance? How can we use the balance? And it's also a balance of intellect. So it's keeping the mind in balance, and operating from a sense of knowing what it is that we face, right? Being consciously aware. When this is reversed, and this is not a reversed, we're looking at blind justice, right? So letting the events in our lives happen to us and seeing it as something that we have no say in. When we look at justice from this perspective, it's very active. And interestingly, right, we just pulled from the Amenti Oracle, right, which is, in case you're not aware, this is living with a feather light heart. It's the 42 ideals of Mot in daily life. And Mot is the goddess from whom we have created the Justice card. So in this card, which I'll pull up really closely, she's holding a heart and a feather. So interesting. We're moving into the week with the intention of a mind that's focused, a mind that's balanced, taking ownership of our lives and doing that from a place of that's conscious rather than unconscious, right? In this one, we've got blind justice. But the energy we would like to work with, is intention. So intentionally bringing a light heart, a feather light heart, and a sense of balance and a balanced mind into our week and into our lives. The Two of Swords as an accompaniment to that is a large part where I'm reading this card from. So if you're a little bit like, that's an interesting reading of justice, this was a huge influence in the way that I was already reading the Justice card. So, moving forward into the week, this is also about putting the mind to rest, putting it down, keeping it balanced, and maybe quieting the mind. It would seem that quieting the mind is going to be really, really important to keeping a light heart and finding peace. So unsurprisingly, this is probably coming from this particular deck, also an admonition reminding us that we really need to be meditating. We need to be pausing and consciously meditating and spending that time, engaging the mind in the intention of peace and through breath, through stillness. Sorry, I have some interruptions around the house at the moment. So coming back, we're looking at the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords in this deck bears some relationship to what we see in the Six of Swords in a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but it moves a little bit into a slightly different direction. And I want to read some of what Kate Silver offers in her guidebook here. So she says, the voyage across the troubled waters is ending. So mental and moral faculties are accessible and ready for use. This card can indicate finally catching sight of the solution to a problem that we've been pushing on for some time. It is a breakthrough of sorts, a completion. Work is still to be done, but knowing we are back on track is very rewarding. So there's a definite sense that this week is about being put back on balance, about finding, whoa, where did it go? We're back. Finding a greater sense of equilibrium, and restoring things to order after feeling like they've been out of order. Okay. So moving on to the Ten of Swords for our third card. So this one too is not quite, a person lying on the ground with 10 swords in their back, right? This is supposed to be Mount Everest. And all of these swords are pointing up towards this mountain. And I feel like this is about, after restoring balance earlier in the week and coming towards, approaching the week from a place of balance, we're really going to need that balance, because as we go towards the weekend, and towards the end of the week next week, we're going to have some pretty steep mountains to climb. Not just in terms of our thought, but it could also be in terms of conflict. I feel like conflict resolution is part of this. I also feel that there may be some kind of spiritually challenging things that arise towards the end of this week that may be influencing this to some extent. Let us see whether I'm right about that. By looking in Kate Silver's gorgeous book. So, in the Ten of Swords, we see Mount Everest in all of its glory. There it is. Covered in glaciers and snowy peaks, under the mountain are 10 double-edged swords. They point toward the mountain, toward the direction of the ascent to heaven. We're reaching a pinnacle in our journey. In swords, we use the mind to connect the mental and the spirit realm. The mind can soar to unimaginable heights, dreaming, opening to visions of the future and past, but it can also open to paranoia and insanity. This possibility can cause intense fear. Because the climb in the Ten of Swords is so steep, it is sometimes an impossible task for us to complete. The truth faced may be so traumatic or shocking that the mere engagement of it is not bearable. It can be a lonely uphill battle, not impossible, but like the mountain, cold and hard. She then says, J.R.R. Tolkien spoke of high mountains as obstacles, heroes must overcome. We are all heroes. When the top of the mountain is reached, the view is magnificent, yet distant. The air is thin and hard to breathe. Often we are alone, and sometimes the view is blocked by storms. The journey down can be as dangerous as the climb up. When we return to ground level, we feel the intense sense of resolution with the knowledge that our mission is completed, and we have learned more than we expected and given more than we thought we had. The intention of this card is to have a clear mind with an expanded field of vision into past, present, and future. Okay, and then she says, it's been an uphill climb, but you have completed your task. The process has changed you deeply. Your mind is expanded and clear. The stretch of your intellect was more than you thought you could bear, and you often felt very alone in your pursuit. Your understanding of life has expanded greatly. You have been given the answers to many questions. It's been an enlightening experience. So it would seem that the focus this week is hard. It's hard to wrap up and more than usual. But we're looking at starting from a place of finding balance and bringing balance, restoring balance to the mind especially. But I'd say also with this Justice card, maybe also to the way we structure life itself, right? But finding it in the mind is going to be especially important. The Six of Swords gives us evidence that the balance is being restored and that we're moving towards a greater balance and shifting from a place that was a little bit more chaotic. The chaos in this week is interesting in this particular spread because it is less, it's implied, and it's not overtly thrown out there. It's just implied. Hey, you're going to have to move on, you're going to be moving on from some chaos. So I feel that there's definite chaos that we're moving away from that is kind of underneath the surface, churning and motivating things. And by the time we get to this Ten of Swords, we've finished that chaos. So whatever chaos arises this week, we're going to get to the end of the week feeling like, whoa, we totally managed this and it's okay. Yeah. So I chose the, and we're going to have a sense of foresight, insight into past, present, future events and what we need to do to move forward. Continuing, right? If you haven't watched it's so interesting if you watch both the general reading and then the shorter reading to see how the two mesh and cross over. This week it's really interesting. So knowing that potentially swords could be a thing coming up this week, which is so interesting because it ended up being all swords energy. The 3 cards here. I chose the Empathic Oracle because I have a feeling that all of this mental energy is going to bring up a lot of emotional stuff to accompany it. And we're going to need some way of grounding, right? Or of knowing what will be grounding to us. So I'm just going to ask the Amenti Oracle, what can we do that will help us carry forward the intention to be peaceful and to find that peace? Okay, so the card drawn this week from the Empathic Oracle is the Moon. And I'd like to, again, read from the guidebook for this one so we can understand what is meant by this one, by the Moon, 24. So it says, in the darkness of night, the silver glow of the moon reminds me that there is always a light to be found. So it's interesting too, because we're looking at a waxing moon, and I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a waxing moon. As the moon finds its way into the nighttime sky, not only are the tides of the oceans affected, but some believe our moods as well. Being that we are 75% water, it's not a very long stretch to make this correlation. Darkness has always been a challenge for many, and when there's an absence of light, the tides of fear can soon find their way to our emotional shores. You must always strive to remember the teaching gift the moon bestows. When you experience an emotional tide within yourself, remember to be gentle in this emotional time of stress. Bathe yourselves in whatever energetic light is present and find comfort in knowing that soon the cycles of the moon will bring closure to your experience. Okay, and then she asks the question, am I gentle with myself in times of sadness? Do I allow myself the knowing that change will happen in this time? Is this a time that is calling for an extra measure of self-care? So I'm going to say it is. I'm going to say that going into the week this week, we are in a state where we need greater self-care. So it's also very interesting from that perspective, if I can find where it went. That we've ended up with I am peaceful as our intention. It's not going to be an easy intention to carry out this week. It feels like looking at both spreads, the general reading, and then this very brief spread with our oracle card. It feels like this is going to be some intense stuff this week. So moving forward, we've all got to step up the self-care, especially knowing that these two guys all of them are telling us about a journey that's going to require peace of mind, balance in the mind. And I feel strongly, because of the general reading, solving our problems through intellect and a certain amount of detachment. So, if we're coming into things from a place that's really emotional, that feels really overwhelming, finding space for self-care so that we can come back to a place that's quiet and peaceful is going to be necessary. So, all right. So with that said, this is me wishing you tremendous peace going into the week. Tremendous, huge peace. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And I really do hope it's a beautiful week. All right. See you next time.